In this video we'll create a database on our AWS service. So as you can see, I've already logged in to my account, and this video is going to be performed in a way that I'll intentionally show you some issues during the process of creation or process of the database to show you how you can handle eventual issues. Okay, so in the search tab type RDS and click RDS. And so because our Java application works under MySQL database, then we'll create the database on the AWS side also as a MySQL. Okay, so click DB instances, create database. We can close this. Standard create MySQL free tier, as we want to use our 750 hours of free usage. Then open node file and type those details as it's handy to have them on site with quick access. I'll call it just db01. We'll copy it and put it into my node. Master user admin, password 12345678. You can type your password. I'm typing 12345678 as is just for this tutorial, but then I'm gonna delete that database and create a database with strong password, so it's up to you. Confirm password, then scroll down, and here we want to use the VPC that we've created earlier on, so app VPC. And here's the first issue. Subnet group. As you can see, we don't have any subnet group. What is it, that subnet group? So I've found that some information over the AWS library. So what we've got to here? And here it is, the most important information. Your VPC must have at least 2 subnets. These subnets must be in 2 different availability zones in the AWS region. Earlier on, I have shown you how to create subnets, but the subnets which we have created, they were in exactly the same availability zones, which means we can use them for this in this scenario. So we have to go back to our subnets, so we can type here subnets. Okay, VPC and VPC subnets. So I'm gonna delete those subnets, as I want to show again how to create them and how to apply different AWS regions. Actions, delete subnet, delete. Okay, and the same for the other one. The other subnets are default subnets, so I don't think so you can delete them. It looks that any default option provided by AWS, you can delete it, so it really doesn't matter that much. Delete. Okay, and now we are gonna create new 2 subnets. Create subnet. Let's call it just SB01. Sorry, first of all I have to apply our VPC. Then I have to provide the name, so SB01. Availability zone, I'm gonna choose US East 1A as my first zone, then 10.0.0.0/24. Okay, create subnet. And as it is written here, you must have at least 2 subnets, so we have to create another one for the same VPC. This time I'm gonna call it SB02. And availability zone, as previously I've used 1A, now I'm gonna use 1B. And 10.0.1.0/24. And create subnet. Okay, there's one more thing I'm gonna check with my subnets. Subnet actions and edit route table associations. So we've created earlier on the route table, but now we have to, as you can see, the subnet has received a default route table. We don't want that. We want to use our route table. Add and save. This is crucial. You have to do that. Without that option, you cannot connect with your database later on. So subnets, and the second subnet, actions, edit route table association, up route table. Okay. So I've come back to the instruction documentation from AWS, and as you can see, if you want your DB instance in the VPC to be publicly accessible, you must enable the VPC attributes DNS hostnames and DNS resolutions. So that's why I've told you earlier on during the creational process of VPC to open those DNS hostnames and resolutions, but we can go back to our VPC. No, sorry, that's wrong here. VPC. And now VPC, and as you can see, DNS hostnames enabled, DNS resolution enabled, and by default they are not enabled. So that's why we've opened them. And I will just remind you, we can do this here and edit DNS hostnames, edit DNS resolutions. Click both options to enabled, and that's it. Okay, back to the database, RDS. During the creational process of the database, we've had that message that we don't have subnet groups. So now we're gonna create them. We've prepared the subnets, so now we are gonna create subnet groups. Create DB subnet group, name subnet group 01, description, let's call it backend Java, maybe just backend. Perhaps you can have another application which will use this MySQL database. VPC, our previously created VPC, and subnets. So as we remember, that was 1A and US East 1A, 1B. And because we have chosen those 2 options, now we've got another 2 options, our first subnet and second one, create. Okay, so now we can try to create the database once again. We'll see if this helped. Create database. Standard MySQL, free tier, DB, where is my file? Okay, DB01, and now I'll change it to DB backend, admin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now you can see all my email addresses. Okay, that's fine, VPC, app VPC, and as you can see, the AWS has already found our group as subnet group 01. Public access. As we are gonna use our private computers to connect to the servers which are somewhere in America, so our IP, which we are receiving from our IP, I think it's vendor or provider, so that provider gives you some IP, and so the AWS has to be able to work with that IP, so that's why we have to give a public access. And the VPC security group. So one more thing which we don't have, as you can see, it's just some default one. We don't want default one, so we have to create security group. So type once again security group, security group, and we've got security groups for EC2 and for VPC. We want it for VPC. Okay, create a security group. Security VPC 01. Description. VPC security, and very ambiguous. Now we have to pick the VPC, and that was strange because AWS provided us the default one without an option to pick another one, so I've had to delete the default one, and then I've got an option for our VPC. Okay, let's make it once again. Yes, this one here. Now we have to create an inbound rule to be able to operate on this VPC, on this security group. So we'll create add rule. This is crucial as well. The security group has to know what ports to let over the to be able to connect with database. So now we are gonna pick MySQL Aurora, because this is our type of database. As you can see, the port 3306 was already applied. Here we are gonna pick anywhere IPv, any address. I think eventually you can put your IP address, but for this tutorial we will leave it as it is. And that should be it. Okay, we'll check that later on. If not, then perhaps we have to add another port, probably for HTTP port 80, but I think that should be enough. Okay, so our security group is provided. We have provided inbound rule for port 3306. Just click create security group and go back to our database. So RDS RDS create database with the DB instances, create database. And as I said, I did it intentionally to show you that we've had to create two sub options to be able to create the database differently, by not using default options. So standard create MySQL free tier DB01. Oh no, I wanted to change it to backend. DB backend admin 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. And next VPC. So we've got our own VPC subnet group. We've got our own subnet group, public access, existing VPC security group, our private security group, so we don't want the default one. Availability zone, U is 1A, so it's our zone. but not by default, created not by default. And I think that's it. Yeah. So create database. One more thing. When you will create the database, it will run straight away, and it's up to you to stop the database during its life, because when I will click that button and I will leave the database and I will do nothing, it is gonna run it's gonna run all the time. So basically after 30 days, because 750 hours is more or less 30 days, that free usage will be used, and then you're gonna move to paid. You will have to pay for your database after 30 days. So bear in mind that you have to control the usage of your database. I will show you later on there is an option to stop the current server of your database, or eventually, because that's a free tier and you should to like yeah, you can stop the database and run it wherever you want it. The downfall or cons of that situation is that the IP address of the database is gonna change periodically. Every time you're gonna stop the database and rerun it, its IP gonna change. But we can sort it later on. But bear in mind, if you will run the database just now and you will not stop it, then it will gonna run for ages, and after 30 days you will start to pay bills to AWS because your free tier usage is gonna end up. I'm not gonna repeat that, just bear in mind. So create a database. Oh no, we don't want that, we don't want that. As you can see, the status is creating. So as you can see, the process of the creational process of the database take a while. It's already 12 past 3. So the status has changed from creating to backing up. So I'll wait a couple of minutes as I want to have the status changed. The status to be active. Okay, my database has been created, so the status is available, not active, available. So I'm gonna check the information. This is what is very important. Endpoint. Copy it and put it aside to your node file, as we will need it later on. So this video has got already 18 minutes. So in next part, next video, I'll show you how to connect to the database by Workbench, and how to connect our backend with our freshly created database.